Welcome. I'm going to show you how to make palm trees, and we're going to make them using a 50-50 mix of fondant and gum paste. And I'm going to show you how to texture the trunk, how to make the palm fronds, and how to make little coconuts to go on top of your trees. So let's get started on this week's episode on making palm trees. Okay, so we are going to work on palm trees, and to get started, you're going to need three different colors. You're going to need a dark brown, kind of like a chocolate brown, which is going to be for the tree trunks. And then you're going to need a very lighter brown, which is going to be for the coconuts. And then a kind of like a leafy green for the prawns, the palm prawns. And we are going to start out with the trunks first. So for the trunks of the trees, I'm using these pointed end dowels. They're kind of like popsicle sticks, but they're wooden, and they have a point on them, kind of like a pencil. And what we're going to do, I'm going to place them in the cake dummy while we're working on them. You want them to go into the cake about an inch. So you want to leave about this much where you're not going to be putting any of the trunk on. This is the part that's going to go into the cake. Now, I know that's a narrow piece there. So when you put it into the cake, you can tell your customers that if they put a straw into the cake that's wide enough to fit this. I usually use Bubba tea straws, and then you put this into the straw in the cake, and that helps support it and keeps it upright so it doesn't kind of tear the cake or anything like that. So you don't need to make it deep or anything like that. 1 inch is perfectly fine. All right, so let's get started on the trunks. I have my dark brown, and this is a combination of fondant and modeling paste. And I'm using Saraceno modeling paste. I use that for a lot of my modeling of my different cake toppers. And so we're going to do one at first. And let's see here. What else do I need? Okay. All right, so you want to get it nice and soft. You don't want to see any cracks or anything in it. So if you have to roll it for a little while to get it soft, that's perfectly fine. So we're going to roll it out, and we want it to make sure that it's just about an inch outside of the palm tree. So because we have the thickness of this stick and the fondant 50-50 mix, we don't need a lot. So we're just kind of rotating it around to get it to come all the way down. We're going to be fixing it once we get it all the way through. And you want to rotate it because it makes it a lot easier to screw inward. Okay, now you're going to wrap it around. So you want about this much into the, that's going to go into the cake. So the bottom piece is going to be here. And what we're going to do here now is roll it. You want to roll it so it gets nice and soft. I picked up a little piece of fondant, white fondant. All right, so you want to roll it so it's nice and soft. All right, I lay a piece of parchment paper over because I don't want all this styrofoam getting onto the product. On there, where the hole is, and then we can work with it better. And then you can form the trunk downward a little bit, so it's more like a trunk. Kind of flatten it out a little. Doesn't have to be perfect, just enough to make it look like a tree. And then we're going to bring this piece, the top piece, we're just going to kind of flatten it out a little bit. You're going to need to put the leaves in there, so you need to have a little flat area for the palm fronds to lay. So we're just going to do it like that. All right. Now the next thing we're going to do, now that we have the top and the bottom set, you want to take it back off. And you want to start making cuts. This is a spring-loaded scissor, and you just want to make cuts starting from the bottom, and you want to cut inward like this, and you don't want them all in a row. Rotate them, diagonal them. You just want to go around and make all kinds of cuts, just little spring-loaded cuts in the tree trunk. And you're going to go all the way around. This piece right here may take a little time to do, but it's important to get this part done. And you just go in and do kind of like a pinch, a little pinch. You're not trying to cut anything off. You're just making pinches. Now, if they flatten up, that's okay, because we are going to flatten them. This pinching is basically making the palm tree markings. Now, on palm trees, a lot of them, the markings are a little bit more prominent on the lower part than the upper part. Okay, now with these markings, you're going to just very gently, you don't want to push too hard, very gently just roll it around again to get everything nice and even. And these markings will then be pushed inward. So they're not going to be standing out, they're just going to be flattened in. It was basically to give you the pattern of the palm tree. And we have here, they're not all equal and they're not all even. So we just want a lot of markings. And then I'm going to put this one back on the styrofoam. And then we're going to make sure that we still have that flat piece right up here, because this flat piece is very important. And now we're going to let it dry. Now, if there's more markings that you want to put on there, that's fine. You can do that. You can still add more markings. If you look at it once it's here and you don't see that it's as many as you want, that's perfectly fine. When the fronds come out, they're going to be laying down. So this area right here at the top, you really won't need as many markings because they're not really going to be seen anyway. So, all right, so this one's about ready. And then you just want to bring this down. And just to give it a pattern on the bottom, I usually just kind of like give it some markings. I'm using my wheel tool. On this end it has the stitching tool, and then this side's the wheel. And I just make little markings on the bottoms. You could do crisscross markings if you like. just so it's not, you know, just a plain looking piece on the bottom. All right, so we have our first one. Now for this project that I'm doing, I'm going to be doing 4 of these. So I'm going to start on my next one, and then I'll be back and I'll show you how to make the leaves. Okay, now that I have my 4 palm tree trunks made, they are drying, and in the meantime, we're going to make some leaves, some fronds they're called. Okay, so I have a set of 3 leaves. You can use any leaf cutter. I'm going to use the larger one, and it measures about 2 inches. So you want to have your palm tree fronds large enough. Okay, now before you get started making your leaves, you want to get a piece of 26 gauge green wire. And we're going to cut them into about 1.5 inch lengths. So let's see here. We'll start out with 1. And right about there. All right, going to cut my 1. And then we'll use that as a guide. And we're going to cut each wire the same length. Now what we are going to do with these is they are going to go into the palm tree fronds, and then the other end is going to stick into our tree trunk. So I'm going to make a few holes for them to go into the tree trunk. So you just want to make a bunch of them. Now I have 4 palm tree trunks, and I'm going to need to make 5 to 6 palm tree fronds for each tree. We'll just use these to get started with. Now I'm going to take out our green 50-50 mix. All right, so you want to just make sure it's conditioned. This is already pre-conditioned, so I'm not worrying about it. And we're going to put a little, okay, let's get these out of the way, put a little bit of cornstarch down and put some on top. Depending on how dry your product is, it's raining outside right now at my place, so my 50-50 mix of fondant and gum paste is actually quite soft. So when this happens, sometimes you may want to use more gum paste than you do fondant. So we're going to roll this out fairly thin. Doesn't have to be too thin, but just thin enough to make our leaves, palm tree fronds leaves, look realistic. Okay. And then we're going to get our cutter, and we're going to cut a bunch of these out. When they're soft, sometimes the edges won't cut properly, so you might want to just pull it up and kind of give it a smoothing out. All right, so we're going to just press and scrape. Make sure the edges are nice and neat. And press, scrape, neaten the edges, push it out, press. Whoops, that one didn't stay in there. However, we can just neaten the edges with our fingers. And press, scrape, pull up, neaten the edges, and pull down. Okay, we're going to start out with these. Now, since our gum paste fondant mix is very soft right now due to the weather,
I'm going to let them out for a moment just to get a little bit firmed up. Now, I like to cut this piece off here because it just doesn't look like a shaped palm tree frond like that. These are actually poinsettia leaf cutters, but they're pretty universal. I mean, if you don't want that tip on there, you just cut it off. You don't have to go out and buy special leaf cutters for each different types of leaves you're doing. You can improvise. Does not have to be a particular leaf cutter. Now you don't want to roll it too thin where the wire is not going to go through. So you do want to have some kind of thickness with it, but not paper thin like we would with some leaves. All right, so then we're going to put them on our board. We'll start out with a couple at a time. And we're going to get our, let me move these out of the way. We're going to get our veining tool and we're just going to create a nice curved vein down the center. Nice curved vein. And then we're going to add some leaf markings. And you can bring this up and out so it comes out to the end. You don't want to do so many that it's more like a leaf than it is a frond. And then what we're going to do is get our scalpel or X-Acto knife, and we're just going to cut out pieces. Just little pieces here and there. Maybe 3, 4. And same with the other side. And maybe one more. Okay. Now what we're going to do is get one of these wires, and you want to bend the wire kind of like a boomerang, and then you want to get a little bit of piping gel or edible glue. I'm using piping gel at the moment because I just made some fresh edible glue and it won't be ready until tomorrow, so piping gel works great as edible glue also. And then turn it around, and then you want to thread this wire in through. Oh, I'm getting a little sticking, so it's because I touched the piping gel. So I'm going to put a little bit of cornstarch on my fingers. And you want to put the wire through the leaf. Just thread it through. If you feel it coming out on one end or another, just try to be careful. Okay, now a little bit of cornstarch on it. It's sticking to my fingers. If it sticks, put some cornstarch on it. Okay, then you want to bring it over to your flower drying rack, and you dry it upside down. That's important. Always remember to dry it upside down because the fronds, when they're on the palm trees, are going to be coming downward. So you want the veining side to be facing downward, so it will curve on and outward once it's dry. So we're going to let that dry, and we'll do another one. Do some cuts. You don't want to cut too deep, just enough. Okay, and then we're going to take another one of our floral wires and bend it. Put a little bit of piping gel or edible glue on the one end. And we're going to thread that through. And if your leaf is too thin, it's going to show up. So you need to make sure your leaves are not too thin. And then you can just pinch the edge so it stays on. And then you put it on the drying rack, upside down, and you let it dry. All right, so I have made 4 of them. I'm going to be making several more, at least 20 more. And then when we come back, we'll start making our coconuts. Okay, now that we have our palm fronds made, I have 29 of these, I believe. I made a few extra. You always want to make extra, so you never know. They're gum paste, so they will break. And so they're going to dry overnight, and then we have our tree trunks, and they are going to dry overnight also. So the only thing left to do in this project are making coconuts. And I rolled out a few balls, and pardon my fingers, I did want to darken them a little bit more. They were very light, so instead of wasting another pair of gloves, I just used, I just put some more brown color into it, and it created a little bit of brown on my fingers. So you just want to make your coconuts small. So that is really how small you want them. You want them very small. I mean, they're not even as big as your fingernail tip. So you want to make them nice and small to be able to get on maybe 4 or 5 of them onto your palm tree. And I like to texture my coconuts because coconuts are not smooth. They have hair on them and they have markings. So I either use a grass piping tip, and you can just kind of make little markings on the coconut and just reshape it. Or you can get a piece of aluminum foil and you just crinkle it up and roll it up, and then use that. Just make markings on your coconuts so they're not completely smooth. They have a little texture to them. And then you just reshape them. So I have here 4 of them. I'm going to be making 30. So I'm going to finish making these coconuts, and then we're going to let everything dry overnight. Once everything dries, we will be putting our palm trees together. All right, we have all of our components now for the palm trees. We have the palm tree stumps, the actual tree itself, and we have our fronds, our palm fronds, and we have some coconuts over here. So we're going to put it all together, and we're going to, I'm just going to do one and show you, and then I will finish the rest for my customer. So what we're going to do, I'll use this one right here. You want to poke a few holes around the top. You can either do it with your floral wire, or you can do it with a tool, with a gum paste tool. And what you want to do is just poke some holes, and deep enough for the palm tree fronds to go into. It is still soft enough that you can still poke some holes through. So I poked a few holes, and I'm putting my palm tree fronds in. Now before you get them all the way in, you want to get some edible glue, and you want to put some edible glue all over the top here and at the base of the palm tree fronds, because that's going to help them stick in there. Okay, and then
we're going to, you want to place your wire in a downward motion so they will go in the way they're supposed to. Just like that. And then once you get them all in, you can adjust the wire to the height of the palm tree that you want. And then you can even decide whether you want to place them a little bit closer or further apart. You can most likely fit 4 to 6, or actually 5 to 6 palm tree fronds in your palm tree. So let's place this one here. And you don't want to place them too close together either. And the edible glue will help keep them from falling forward like this. So once the glue attaches, then you're good. So it may take a few minutes for it to dry. And we'll put another one over here. Try to space them out as evenly as possible. So you can just play around with it till you get them where you want it. And then you want to, it's just kind of, pardon my fingers, I'm just trying to get them a little bit more to where I want them. And just put more edible glue if you need to. That's perfectly fine. And then we're going to put more edible glue on top. And then this is also going to help hold. I'm actually just demonstrating where to put the edible glue. I'm not putting them in right now because I sell these palm trees as kits. I don't package them already made because I've tried one time before and the palms fronds started breaking, and it was very difficult to package that way. So what I package now, I make all of my palm fronds, I wrap them up together, and all the coconuts, and I put them separately, and then the palm trees, and I package them up with a container of edible glue, and I explain to the customer how to put them together. So it's a lot easier, less breakage when you get them in the mail. So right now for you demonstrating this, I do not have any edible glue in here because I'm going to be taking these back out for packaging. But they will not slide around like this when you have edible glue, because the edible glue will make them stay. Okay, and then you're going to put more edible glue all around the top, and you're going to put your coconuts in here. Okay, and then you can put your coconuts as many as you want. I usually put about 5 or 6, depending on what you would like. So there you have your palm tree, your coconut palm tree, and it is ready for you to put on your cakes. All right, folks, I hope you have a great week,